The summer sun in Texas was already high when 20-year-old Daniel Carter adjusted his cap and glanced at the bus schedule pinned to the worn-out board. He had been restless for weeks, unable to shake the feeling that his small town was too confining, too quiet for someone his age. Daniel's dream had always been to see the world beyond his little corner, and though his pockets weren't heavy with money, his heart brimmed with the courage of youth. On that same morning, 65-year-old Margaret Wilson stood at the same bus station. Margaret, a retired schoolteacher, had lived a full life but had recently been feeling the weight of loneliness since her husband passed away. Her children were grown, busy with their own families and careers, and though they loved her dearly, they lived far away. Margaret had always believed life had more stories to tell her, and so she decided to take a journey to see an old friend she hadn't met in years. Daniel noticed her first. She stood gracefully, her silver hair neatly tied back, her posture still carrying the dignity of someone who had spent a lifetime guiding others. Something about her reminded him of his grandmother, and he instinctively offered her a seat when he saw her struggling with her bag. "Ma'am, would you like me to hold that for you?" Daniel asked, stepping closer with the kind of politeness his mother had taught him since childhood. Margaret looked up, her eyes filled with surprise and gratitude. "Why, thank you, young man. That's very kind." And so began their journey together, two strangers from different generations, waiting for the same bus that would take them on a trip neither of them had expected. When the bus finally arrived, they found themselves seated side by side. Daniel quickly discovered that Margaret had a warmth about her, the kind that invited conversation. At first, their talk was simple, about the weather, about their destinations, but soon, Margaret's curiosity about Daniel's dreams and Daniel's admiration for Margaret's wisdom pulled them into deeper discussions. As the bus rolled past endless fields and highways, Margaret told him stories of her youth. She spoke of how she had once been adventurous too, traveling across states to study literature. She shared how she fell in love with teaching, how she had inspired generations of students, and how even now, she sometimes received letters from them. Her eyes sparkled as she described moments of joy, but they also dimmed when she mentioned losing her husband and how quiet the house had become afterward. Daniel listened intently. For the first time, he saw that life didn't just unfold in the here and now. It stretched out like the highway before them, full of twists and turns, moments of laughter, and moments of sorrow. When it was his turn, Daniel confessed how he often felt lost, unsure of what path to take. He loved art but had been pressured to study engineering by his parents. He admitted that he feared making the wrong choices and regretting them later. Margaret smiled gently. "Daniel, life is not about making the perfect choice. It's about walking bravely into the choice you make and living it fully. Regrets only come when you never try." That sentence sank deep into his heart. Their bus made stops along the way, and each time, Margaret and Daniel grew closer. At a small diner in Oklahoma, Daniel insisted on buying Margaret lunch, even though his wallet was light. She laughed softly at his insistence but accepted, touched by his respect and generosity. They shared burgers and milkshakes, and Daniel teased her about how she still had a sweet tooth at 65. Margaret teased him back, saying age doesn't take away the love for good things, only the ability to eat too much of them. On another stop, they visited a park near the bus station. Margaret's knees ached slightly, but Daniel walked beside her, slowing his steps so she wouldn't feel rushed. They sat on a bench under the shade of a tree, watching children play. Margaret's eyes softened. "I spent most of my life guiding children like these," she said. "But I never imagined I'd be sitting here, still learning from someone as young as you." Daniel was taken aback. "Learning from me? I haven't done much yet." Margaret shook her head. "You've reminded me that youth is not wasted just because it's uncertain. It's a time of courage, of endless possibilities." I had forgotten that. The journey stretched on for hours, and as the bus hummed along the highway, they even sang softly together when a familiar old country song played on the radio. Other passengers glanced their way, some smiling, some curious, but for Daniel and Margaret, the bus felt like their own little world. When night fell and the bus windows reflected the glow of distant city lights, Margaret began to feel tired. Her head slowly leaned toward Daniel's shoulder, and he let her rest there without moving. The trust between them was quiet but powerful. Daniel looked at her silver hair, thought of his own grandmother, and realized how rare it was to share a bond with someone of a different generation so quickly. By the time they reached their destination, both knew this journey had changed them. Margaret had been heading to Kansas to meet her old friend, while Daniel had planned to continue further north to chase job opportunities. But as they stood at the station where Margaret's stop arrived, Daniel carried her bag down and walked her to the exit. "Thank you, Daniel," Margaret said, her voice warm but firm. "You may not realize it now, but this journey has been important for both of us. You reminded me that life still has surprises left for me, even at my age." Daniel felt his throat tighten. "And you reminded me that mistakes don't matter as much as the courage to try. I won't forget that, Mrs. Wilson." They hugged briefly, the kind of hug that carried gratitude, respect, and affection without needing many words. Margaret disappeared into the crowd, heading toward her waiting friend, while Daniel watched her go, feeling that his life had just shifted slightly toward a clearer direction. Later, when Daniel sat back on the bus, he opened his sketchbook. For the first time in months, he felt inspired. He drew Margaret as she had looked when she laughed at the diner, when she spoke about teaching, when she rested against his shoulder. Each sketch was filled with life and warmth. He realized then that art wasn't just about talent. It was about capturing the soul of human connections. The journey had only lasted a day, but it had given them something priceless. Margaret had rediscovered her own spark, and Daniel had found the courage to trust his dreams. And so, though they were strangers brought together by chance, their story became a testament that sometimes the most unexpected journeys bring the most lasting lessons.